one that says April 23rd, regular meeting. I've got one that says budget review workshop meeting, and I've got one that says, where's it at? Something,
The budget final meeting.
Final meeting.
and the final, yes. So, there was some, if you've reviewed them, we'll go make a recommendation for one meeting at a time, one section at a time, and if you read through it, I noticed a lot of my name being spelled right in one paragraph and spelled wrong in the next paragraph.
Okay.
So, and then the title has my name spelled right. So, just, maybe, and then yours is, it had your last name and then had Wendy.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
So it's like, nothing major that I mean, I put some question marks, but I see on the agenda you're going to discuss some of our questions.
Yes, sir, from the previous
From the
meetings
meetings in July and
The
stuff.
findings, yes, correct.
Yeah, yeah. So, if you guys would like, take a few minutes if you haven't already, and then just go, hey, I'll recommend or not recommend, or I saw this needs to be changed or corrected. We can put it on the record, and then we can approve or move from there. Did everyone get all three, by the way?
Yes.
Okay.
Wendy, there were no changes because of, remember how busy you were today that we discussed. This is the same copies that we originally got, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Just make sure I didn't have to read them again.
Yes, ma'am. And your April 23rd minutes are unchanged. They were just not scripted for you to approve the last meeting, so we were
Right.
going to approve them on this one. Mhm.
Right.
No changes.
Just curious, I don't know if you know or not. I noticed on here, I think I used to do it with planning. Am I supposed to sign these? So it shows on the back.
Yeah, that's
signature,
new.
But I can't tell you the last time I've signed a
Right.
minutes.
They just updated us in the city clerk's office that they need to be signed at the end of the evening. And we didn't know that, so they asked us to
I
add
know we
that.
used to, and then it just kind of faded, so.
That's what they said, so they updated, so we wanted to be correct, and we added it, so you'll sign them today.
Yeah, we'll do.
Uh-huh.
I just want to make sure I just saw that on there.
Sure.
Man, she's got that thing like straight up and down. She doesn't want to talk at all. Gosh, now he's gonna. There's no issues. Chair will take a motion on whichever budget you minutes want to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from Tuesday, April 23rd.
Recommendation for approval. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Orlando. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All right, passes 4-0. take a motion on any of the other two budget lines.
Let me see, what was on number 2? Make a motion to approve the minutes for July 22nd, 2019. I believe it's number 2,
The budget review one or the final budget?
the budget review one.
Got a recommendation to approve the budget review from July 22nd. Do I have a second? No second. Do we have any issues we want to address?
Yeah, I didn't know when we wanted to have the discussion, but
Nope, we can do it now. I mean,
Yeah.
we got it before we approve them.
I had sent Wendy an email and copied Dave today with some of my concerns on this one. And one of the things I wanted to clarify, which she explained in her replies back to me, I mean, we could have probably gone back all day, but she had a busy day. I didn't want to bother her. We're close to tonight. Let's just get it done here, you know. I think you told me, is this Claudia, your new executive administrative assistant?
Yes, and I'm sorry for not introducing.
Yeah.
Actually, this is Adriana Bello, and she is our new executive assistant.
I apologize.
But no, great memory, because Claudia was
Yeah, well,
the assistant who helped us
I had
last
the
time.
notes, and I told her welcome, and she said, I ain't staying here. I'm
We got
filling
one
in.
to stay. We got one to stay.
Yes, Claudia. Appreciate all your emails and stuff that you've sent out and all that good stuff, but not Claudia.
I was going to say.
Adriana.
Adriana.
She just repeated it.
I'm going to write it down because, you know, I'm old. I
a
messed
name.
up Dawn and Donna all the time.
Dawn.
Thought I was talking to one, it was the other. So Claudia was here that night.
Yes, ma'am.
Who transcribed the minutes, actually?
So the person who transcribed it was Adriana Bello, in conjunction with Claudia's notes that day, and also she got a copy of the audio and went with the audio step by step. And she worked with the city clerk. They taught her how to transcribe, and we're getting fine-tuned with that.
Sure,
So
sure.
that's how it happened. So yes, they did use the notes that Claudia took down, which was,
Yeah.
as best as she could with the
Right.
terminology.
Right.
And then, secondary, they took the audio and went, line by line with it.
So I wanted to make sure Orlando and Jeremy knew that when they read them, because it's hard to go back and kind of put all that together. But I could definitely tell. That's why I was like, I don't, maybe it's me, maybe I'll go down to the next one. And then, it just, some of it does not make sense to read it. And I'm pretty good in financial terminology, so I didn't think it was me, but hey, it could be.
Sure.
So I feel, before we vote on these minutes, that when possibly Wendy has more time to kind of look at it, and we can go line by line tonight, I don't have a problem with that, but I think they need to be fine-tuned before we vote on them to where they make sense. That's just my thought and input. I've got a couple of things that I noticed in here that, I didn't understand myself, and some changes to some terminology. That's why I thought it was terminology.
Okay.
And that's it on this one. So what do you want to do? Do you want to go line by line tonight, get it done with? Or would you want the opportunity to go and kind of look over it yourself when you've got more peaceful day going on? Not that you'll have a peaceful day between now and the next meeting,
It's
but
an optimistic approach.
yeah.
I'm just wondering, Jeanette, if where your confusion is, I mean, if you go, hey, I don't even know what you meant by this, because her going through it, she might go, yeah, that makes sense to me, and you're going,
Okay.
I don't.
And that's where it could be written differently.
Yeah. So,
One of the changes that I would like to just see made is the 5th paragraph. It's the biggest paragraph on the first page. Member Gardner asked about, instead of federal lobbyists, it should be state. And it's possible I only said lobbyists, so they just kind of filled that in. The next paragraph, and maybe you guys could tell me what this position is called, but it says, Member Gardner asked if we do not have a grant. And I also asked whether it was here or later. Do we have anyone on the city staff that writes the grants? So I don't know what that position is called with the city, a grant writer. I don't know what that position is called. So that was kind of where I was going with that. Next page, first full paragraph. Member Gardner asked if any of the increased fund balanced the increase.
Oh.
Ms. Murray said the variance, and they are not reporting the negative in page 39 every single time, line item. So I don't recall. I don't recall where we were at in the discussion there. Towards the bottom, after the larger paragraph, Member Gardner asked if the books and training for all new positions also goes in with that 7,000. Again, before this paragraph, it wasn't talking about 7,000. That's kind of out of the blue, so I feel like we're missing some information there. And I definitely recall that conversation, but I don't know where in the conversation we were asked. And then the next paragraph, Member Brown asked about the budget line that shows they need to fill several vacant positions. Mr. Anderson stated there were overtime vacant positions and that the department needs more employees because of the growth of the city. The budget implemented 2 positions that were budgeted for because of that need.
Okay.
So again, I remember the conversation.
Yeah, who's they? There's no identifier to they, right? Is that what you're getting at?
Well, it just wasn't written in a way that, show that they need several vacant positions. Yeah, that would definitely be helpful as well.
I kind of remember that conversation.
Like I said, I remember
you were
it.
questioning the variances in the planning department's salaries and wages.
Yeah, Jeremy was.
Some.
I do remember the conversation.
Andre came
Again,
up,
it's just,
yeah.
I think it's the way it's written, the way it's pulled together. And Adrian, I hope you know, I know this has nothing to do with your work, okay? So don't take that as you at all. When you're trying to pull a team together to get a job done, you do the best you can. Let's see, the next page, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Paragraph 6. Last sentence, Member Gardner also stated they need a better description of why they are asking for additional funds. I think I would rather see that say why they are asking for an increase in their budget.
Same paragraph.
Third from the bottom. Again, second line at the end, need an increase in their budget for next year. The very bottom, there's the last floating word of administration that could be striked, I think.
And on the 1, 2, 3, the fourth one where I'm talking about it, I have a question mark there. I'm assuming, I don't need the details now, is that a topic you're going to be bringing up? Fourth from the bottom where she's at. 1, 2, 3, 4. Chairman Reinhardt shows concerns about Chairman Reinhardt requested the numbers, look again to see that paragraph. I just put a question mark, but I saw, that's why I'm not, if you're going to cover that in your review, I don't need
Yes,
to.
sir. The 2 items that you asked for, we're reviewing them up front.
Perfect.
And I think that's all
And
I
I
had, but I
also
would
had
just encourage Wendy to just kind of reread it and see
Sure
if
thing.
it all.
The third paragraph on that page. is that going to be this page here, are we going to cover that as well? I just noted in here, where are we with it? Where are we at with this, so?
The city of Kissimmee overtime
I'm
rate,
on this page,
third page
probably,
or fourth?
with that on the bottom. As the city can just hire more employees instead of having overtime, to which the city manager responded that there is an ongoing study at this time, which includes a matrix. So is this part of
Yes.
your review?
Yes, I'm going to update you on that as
Okay.
well.
If we want some, I have no problem with, which we did for the April 23rd one, we can get this more clarification for the minutes. And how about the final budget? I think that was a one-pager.
The other thing I wanted to ask real quick is, I believe I understand that they record these meetings, of course, because that's what she transcribed from. Are they put anywhere on the website for the public to watch? Where do they keep those archived at?
Yeah, I believe I saw them out there under the media section.
Could
where
you
can
guys
look
find
at
out where
our-
that is and maybe send it,
Send it to you?
all of us, maybe?
Sure.
Just so we have it in case we needed it, and maybe we could have
So
clarified
you
it
know up
before
there.
tonight.
Yeah, and we'll definitely ask them, but on the www.stcloud.org, there's a media center, and there should be links to archives, but we'll double check that they are available, because sometimes I know for storage, they might remove them at a certain point.
Right.
But we'll get you the link, or the actual audio file, we can also get those, and send you the link of the audio file.
All right, so we have consensus with the budget review to hold off on that vote until we have some clearing up and clarity on that one? If not, if we're good with that, so we're going to postpone a vote on those minutes for the budget review for July 22nd for our January meeting. If you can review the 22nd final budget, which should be just a single front page that would have comments, the rest are just a review of the budget. If you would like, we can take a motion for that, and unless we need clarification on anything you see there.
Yeah, the other thing I shared with Wendy and David, that what I recall, but at my age, who knows, is I do remember David making the statement, where is it? I thought there was a statement on there that you thought
I saw
Wendy
it on
took
that
really
email.
good notes.
I saw it on your email.
Uh-huh. So that wasn't mentioned anywhere in the two documents, maybe. Maybe I'm just remembering from the email.
No, I think it's mentioned somewhere.
Is it in the other one in the workshop? Anyway, while you're looking for that, I want to do Orlando and Jeremy. What I recall happening, usually at the final meeting, and Orlando would know this, and we'll see what Jeremy remembers, but normally at the final budget meeting, the Finance Committee decides what their recommendations are. And then we kind of vote on it, so Wendy and or David could present it to council. It appears, based on these minutes, that did not happen. I thought I recalled making a recommendation, having a second, and then we all voted. What Wendy shared is what she recalled, and I remember this happening too, but I thought it was after we did that. They asked if there was any others, and Dave said, no. We've seen that Wendy's taken really good notes of all of our stuff we talked about during the workshop. We trust that she's going to move forward and work on these items that she could help people with or whatever. I'm just curious what you guys recall. Do you recall a recommendation being made and us voting.
I thought we did, because didn't we mess up because we talked
Yeah, we
Without
got
the
scolded for
microphone?
that too.
as
Yeah.
we were deciding what the recommendation was?
Right.
And then at the end, we made the recommendation?
And that's what I told David I remembered.
And then I think the recommendation was, including with everything Wendy talked about, we had, I guess, our stuff that was brought up.
Yeah, it was only, I want to say 2 or 3 items, and unfortunately, I could go look at home, but I didn't, I don't know that I kept any of that stuff. I might have returned it all that night.
Like, I thought one
I don't have
was, I think it was the waste, somebody in waste management, they budgeted a contract and over in payroll, and Wendy, I think, agreed that that would be a valid budget amendment. I think that was one of them that I remember. And I thought there were a couple.
Okay.
You had to come up, where did you, in your email,
Isn't it, Mr. Mayor?
it looks like a quote, so you had to find it somewhere about what was said. I thought that was,
That was Wendy, and I think it was when they were possibly listening to the recording at that point.
but I'm saying I would think it would have been in here. Where would you have pulled that out of? I'm assuming you had to have read it.
No, I
trying to
had
find it,
asked,
but
I
I'm-
had asked Wendy, we had made a recommendation and we had voted on it. And, or I thought we had, and I didn't see that in the minutes. What does she recall? I'll pull it up.
On the budget review, by the way, the very bottom, I'm assuming, looking at a pay increase. Just to mark that, it says page increase. So I know if we're going to redo this paperwork, at least clean that up, but just make that mark there.
Okay,
Well-
so I found your meetings, and they are on the internet. You just go to the City of St. Cloud's webpage, into Media Center, and then go into Archive Meetings. And there's a nice picture of Dave holding up some papers.
That's probably why I never found it. No, I didn't even look for it.
It's not only, it's visual and audio.
Media Center and then archive meetings.
Yes.
So I guess in the spirit of transparency and making sure, with the transition that we had, unless the committee sees otherwise, why don't we take the budget review and the budget final? I'll redo and look at the audio and make sure it's copacetic, check for all the aesthetics. And then that way everybody's more comfortable with what we have and it's right. And that's no trouble at all. We'll, like I said, we'll take a stab at it and bring it back.
I'm good with that.
Okay, and then I know Ms. Gardner did advise, and we're good in compliance if everybody is here, that moving forward, minutes from the meeting will be delivered 1 week after the meeting to you all, so we have enough time and everybody remembers versus 3 months out, so we're committing to that.
Yeah, I thought that was a good idea. The only other thing, I think if we could get these guys' emails so they could see what she was emailing you.
Sure.
I know she CC'd me in, but she might not have had y'all's email, but I want you to see what, and then she responds in red, which is good. But I thought it was a good idea. She makes a comment about, because obviously look what we're having here 3,
Right.
4 months later. I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember.
So I thought it was a good idea that, hey, if we get it and you go, hey, I don't remember, I didn't say that, it's got to be this, and you can shoot it back, and then when we come in here, we're pretty clear on what we have.
Sure.
So I thought it was a good idea. But if we can, if you have these guys' email, if you could just send your response to them
Okay.
as well, so they can be aware. And if you don't, if you can give them at the end of the night your email address so
We
she
sure will.
has it, and then we'll, I want it all to be out there. She was just CCing me in as the chairman, but I think you guys need to be just as well on board. Make sure you get Darnell in there as well, since he's not here tonight. All right.
And while we're kind of talking about that, I had asked Wendy, versus them always trying to get us beautiful paper copies, which they've always done such a fabulous job doing, could they send them electronically if that's something that we desired or were okay with? And she said, absolutely. So I know Tom's not here tonight, but I could see him saying yes to that too. Jeremy, I didn't know if you'd rather have all of this stuff sent to you electronically, or you'd rather still come to the city and pick up paper, and same with Orlando too, you could probably let her know now.
I mean, I'm fine with paper, but if you want to send it electronically, it's up to you.
Okay.
I like feeling it in my hands.
Yeah, and we can definitely take, and get with you all after the meeting and just say what your preferences are, so we can update your profile and know if we have some paper or electronic. We'll do it whichever way is easier for y'all. We'll always have the paper copy here when you
Yeah,
come to the
when we
meeting.
respond here, I always get that, the copy here, but if I'm good with, for me, if I have it electronically, I can see it, but I want to come here, I don't want to print something out
Sure.
on my computer. At least I know I'm coming here and the
Absolutely.
agenda's here, so
Sure.
I'm good with that. If he
Okay.
wants paper,
Yep.
I would just say when you did like you this week, hey, pick it up by Thursday, he can come by and pick it up, and whoever it's if you want it, and if I go, hey, I want it, print, otherwise.
Absolutely. We can do
Go
that.
from there. All right. Any other concerns about the minutes? I think we're pretty clear with it.
The only other question is, did we have a regular meeting that night after these budget meetings?
Yes, regular meeting was, that's the
First.
wrong one.
That was April 23rd. We're missing our July 22nd minutes.
Yes, and we just asked, so when we got the minutes to transcribe, because it's been a while, they gave us the budget workshop meetings for July 22nd, but because the July 22nd regular meeting is saved under regular meeting, they didn't give us those minutes, so we're going to collect them now and add those to that. So you'll have meetings 1, 2, and 3, first one being the regular meeting, and then the 2 budget ones to approve all at once, so we'll transcribe all that.
Very good. All right, we got previous business.
Okay, so previous business, the first item is the update and presentation by Jay Glover, which was from PFM. You wanted some comparative data of the refunding of the capital improvement. If you look at your packet on the back end, not just to please Ms. Kerner, but because I couldn't let her down, I did draft an introduction, a reporting analysis, and recommendations for this quarter to include old business. So if you want to follow along, I'll walk you through it. In the old business, if you look down, the question was data on comparison with the presentation. We originally in July presented a $2 million conservative savings that would happen if we refunded these 2010 bonds, and here's the parameters that we listed to give you some data. So the Build America bonds, the original par amount was $34,015,000 with an interest rate of 5.1 through 5.9. We obviously were in the situation of receiving 35% interest subsidy, and that's the reason why we were looking to possibly refund in order to get away from that subsidy that was eventually going to go away and we weren't going to receive. PFM went out there to do an analysis with interest rates dropping and found that if we did it through a loan instead of bonding, we would actually get a better return, which that is exactly what happened. The 2010 bonds were a good candidate for the debt service. We had in September a RFI that was done for 3 proposals from banks, Bank United, through Pinnacle Public Finance, Capital One Public Funding, and Sterling National Bank. As you look down, you will see that the proposed rates for those through closing were locked in. Bank United offering 3.39, Capital One Public offering 2.94, and then Sterling Bank offering 2.54. Of course, we went with the 2.54, which gave us a gross debt savings of $4.7 million over the life of this debt. Net present value savings were $3.6 million, and that, in layman's terms, comes out to about $225,000 savings a year, all the way up to 2040. So we doubled the savings by refunding, and that is the comparative data that you were looking for to see what the better option is, and I think we did more than fair to double the savings that we were able to provide in debt service. Go ahead.
Sorry, so like, basically in summary then, doing these comparisons did lead to this success, I guess?
Yes, doing the
Okay.
comparison, yes. And, instead of just going straight through the bonding, we requested PFM, hey, what are other options? They provided us with us, working with our accountant, and, this was a healthy savings that, produced that. So we're very pleased with it. The city was very pleased with it. Excuse me for the cough. The following item was some numbers and figures, and mind you, these are Q4 figures on the overtime that St. Cloud spends for the police, as well as current staff numbers. Current staff numbers right now, to include police, and code enforcement, is 184 employees. Q4 reported that the Division 6010 of the police was budgeted at $321,184 for only overtime, with actual expenditures going to $400,355. Percent of expenditure there was 125%. In communications, budgeted was $60K, with an actual of $89,110 at 147% of expenditure, and then code coming in at 14 in budget and 1447 in actuals, maintaining at 97%. Things to consider as to why the 125% over expenditure and the 147 is we did have Hurricane Dorian, which was an exuberant amount of prep work for a storm that lasted quite a bit. Police had to upstaff, as well as fire and public safety, which I'm sure you all are aware, and that kind of drove cost, way more than expected.
Is that where you saw the increase, or you just, we're going to tie it to something? In reality, because I know they do, I'm on this committee, and they're doing a lot of training. Mm-hmm. And the training pulls from patrol, so they have to bring in overtime to fill that.
Yes, sir.
So are we just going, hey, let's just put it on to, let's blame Dorian because it looks good,
Mm-hmm.
or do we go, I've got physical evidence to go, during Dorian we did 27 officers had to work overtime when we never have 27 officers at one time doing overtime.
Sure. So some factors that related to that, Dorian took the biggest chunk because burn rate during Dorian was $326 an hour. That's what we were burning on upstaffing, because they upstaffed to 9 squads, went up to like 12 to 13. However, that's not the only factor. We're also talking about training and the extra special events that they're covering for the 4th of July, the details and all that. A big portion of the swing came from Dorian. They were steady holding their overtime because they do already budget for that, but Dorian really tipped them over, where we didn't have that, quantifiable amount. So it's a combination of 3, but the biggest factor was that upstaffing in Dorian, absolutely. And that was the 2 questions that were needing to be updated in old business for you.
Quick question. When they have special events and/or when they have an emergency, like Dorian shows up, is there not transfer of funds of anything to help cover, instead of their budget looking like it just went completely over?
So one of the factors to consider, and I was going to kind of get more into detail when we did Q4, is that we are in the 13th period, and we need to true up accounts as well if we need to pull in. So at this time, this is what is represented in actuals, and I wanted to be very clear as to where we are. I mean, we're not going to leave a fund non-balanced and stuff, but at this point, that's what kind of tipped the scales a little bit, but we are going to true up accounts. We can't, leave them in the red. Just wanted to give you true Q4 numbers.
I just didn't know when they had special events, if whoever's leading that special event, or the department or whatever, if they have to budget for security and different stuff, or if that's just...
I think, to be honest with you, I think we're trying to get more eloquent in that as well, because we're spending so much, like with the chamber and funding those, and what that cost of business is, and getting those true numbers. A lot of the departments are doing that, just not just police, of the things that we don't count as overhead that
Right.
we're, so we're trying to get more streamlined, especially with this budget year, to put in those new tactics to say what are these extra things that we're doing that we really don't account for at the front end, if you can say, and they're trying to get much more eloquent. That's the goal this budget year, is to have more validity in why we're adding more overtime or not, because there should be some increases because of that.
Because I would assume detailed pay, every year, 4th of July. And they know now, it takes 27, 33 people to work it, so that should be a solid budget, a New Year party, whatever. All these things should already be predetermined well ahead of time. There shouldn't be a shock to the budget.
Sure. And I've asked some departments, like new projects that are coming in, is to really quantify for me, as just a person that's not on a detail, what does it mean to upstaff? So do you normally carry 4 squads and upstaffing means 6? Then I can put the formula together, but I'm trying to get that data now so we understand what that means. Is, public safety answers the call as they need, but that might not be a number for us. So they're compiling that for us to help us just say, okay, especially to produce like policy for hurricane. When we upstaff, that's going to naturally mean that PD is going to go up to 10 squads, whatever that may mean. At least we have a number and we're ready, versus going like Hurricane Dorian happened from $56 burn rate to $326 in 16 minutes. So, it's just what happened.
Do you, like, more for like your tools to get those numbers, do you have like pretty good quality back-end payroll systems, ADP, Paycor, or anything else like that makes this process really easy or helps control spending before it happens, stuff like that?
Well, we don't use ADP. We use the AS400. It has some reporting that we need to get a little bit more robust on, but I think it can hold and give us all the data we need. I mean, we run payroll reports, so it's pretty robust. It's a J.D. Edwards model, so I don't feel non-confident. It would be easier if it was, the Rolls-Royce of ADP, but, it helps, and we'll be able to get that data. On top of that, with the expertise of the divisions themselves knowing, we can at least extrapolate that data and verify with them, like, does that make logical sense what they're saying?
Yeah, I guess my ultimate question is, if ADP, costs more, a lot more, right? If the tools in ADP justify preventative spending, and then the savings in that cover the cost in that and more some, is that something that's maybe been looked at or can be looked at, or
Well,
would help with this situation, I guess?
It's always a possibility. I'm not against it. I'm all about working smarter, not harder. So at this point, one of the options was looking into a new financial program. We're not there yet. We have 2 launches going on right now to go from MS-DOS screen to a more Windows-based screen and more readily available information. We'll deploy that first and see how that helps us get our reports, because it's got some good options through OpenGov that we're doing and track it right now. And trying to deploy those out by November. But it's always, for me, an option. I really don't focus too much on the cost. It's really the
I was going to say,
cost savings.
Wouldn't want cost to be a
Yeah.
factor that city council looks
Sure.
at and says, I don't like the cost,
Sure.
if they don't understand the function, because the function might lead to way better savings.
Yeah, and I
So,
definitely,
yeah.
with the direction of the city manager, where he wants to go with that, I'm always open to it. If we can bring it on board, and he's very open to that as well as the team's input if we need it. At this point, we're just trying to stay conservative to deploy 2 systems, then go and see what else we need before we start rocking and rolling with that. So,
With the old business, the question I see that I wrote on here, that about the matrix.
yes, sir. So the Matrix Consulting has been contracted out. They'll be sending information in December, as early as December, surveys and things. What they're going to do is a company from Los Angeles come in and quantify how we're staffed accurately, correctly, and they're going to look at the entire system. That's going to happen boots on the ground in January. So then we'll start getting comparative data there to see, and they'll report to the city manager as far as what our staffing levels are, whether deficient or a surplus, or where people need to be put strategically.
Now, this is, the question I had was on the fire and police. Are they going to, is this LA company focusing on that, or is this a citywide focus?
It's a citywide focus.
Because my question back during this meeting is fire and police, because chief's using an analog system of 2.2, which was approved in 2000, which isn't even really a realistic factor. What's being used nowadays is more calls for service. So do they have that expertise to go, oh, law enforcement should use call for service versus this 2.2 thing that the FBI created in 1992?
Sure. I'll tell you what, in the talks that I've had, and at least I've sat through and listened to, their focus does have the public safety side with that, going away from just not a number and this is what you need, the 2.2. They will be looking at types of calls, length of calls, severity of calls, demographics in the area, annexation of properties and how big the demographics have gone. And so I've heard that buzz going on because they've also will be looking at, I know, different models of how to staff within the PD, the corporal mentality and things of that nature. I'm not too well versed on that, but that's what I've heard. So there is a big emphasis on that to include the city part, but public safety is at the forefront, to make sure we have the correct
Because we're
staffing.
at 1.7 right now, and he's wanting 2.2, and I just want to make sure we're on track, because when they brought up planning came and was giving us the census of, in 2030, we'll be at 79,000. Well, we should have, according to those stats, fire needed to hire 9.2 and police needed to hire 7.8 all the way through that time period. And I brought it up in our meeting. It's like, there's no way. I've never had a meeting where the police or fire's asked for more than like 2 people.
Sure.
Barely. I mean, I'm sure we've had them, but I've never heard police going, hey, we need 7 today. Or for this upcoming year. I just don't see it. And if we're going to try to keep up with these numbers, I know we're trying to support public safety, and I'm all for it, but how are we figuring these things out? I want to make sure we're using the right tools, and calls for service, types of calls, all need to be articulated. Are they going to, so you think boots on the ground, meaning they'll be coming here and starting that process?
Yes.
And then, did they give you a general, hey, we'll have a report to you in June, or?
They have a time frame. I'm not 100% sure, and I don't want to talk out of turn the time frame if it's 3 months after they're done. So yes, January would be boots on the ground, where they have their consultants come here and kind of deploy out. In December, the city manager was mentioning that they would send over surveys to employees and things of that nature, gather some data already from the company, then come in in January, like I said, and physically be here. I know the city manager has worked with this firm before and has had good results, especially in the public safety side. So overall, we're expecting a really thorough review of what it takes to just run the city, and then taking all those recommendations, and the city manager will proceed from there.
That'd be good to, and is that just solely for staffing levels, not like, because I'm already finding out we're 2 fire departments short already. Do they go, hey, you need this, besides staffing, you are also needing 7 planners and 3 buildings, and?
That's what I've gathered from the information that's been shared. So it's supposed to be very lucrative, very in-depth, very good results, because they will say, hey, even on the upside, you have too many of this, and maybe
Sure.
it would be better used this way. So,
That sounds awesome.
we're looking forward to it. That was the final item that I needed to update from previous business.
A real quick question.
Sure.
This was old business I saw in the April 23rd meeting minutes. Did we ever find out where OUC is at? Are they up to date with sending us funds that are required to come our way? That's a discussion we had before, and they had a delay.
Yeah, I think the discussion was the fact that the OUC makes a calculation when they send our money. They hold out receivables, and their receivables have been climbing, and they didn't do any write-offs for a while. So I really didn't see a big change or an increase in this year's budget for that monies that was held on the table because of their receivables. But we're still working with OUC to get all the numbers and to make sure that they're all correct. But, yeah.
Also, wasn't there something, trying to find it, about the Parks and Rec final plan or something we were going to get, or they had a copy? I remember Bill said something,
Yeah.
highlighted it.
Well, the minutes stated that it appears that the Parks and Rec master plan is completed. But from what I remember last time, it was still pending. Because I made the statement, it had been pending for
Yeah, I brought
the
that-
entire time I had been on the board. So do we know if we've have a final master plan?
I know
On
that
Parks
they
and
were,
Rec?
yeah, I don't want to say that they're not completed, but I know they were working on the trails part, and I don't know if that, obviously it's part of it, so I know they were working on trails, and I haven't heard if that's, a separate item where they say, hey, the master plan for Parks and Rec in totality is done, so definitely an item we can ask the director, and we can update you all on that.
Trying to find it. I know we covered Parks and Rec, and just trying to see where it's at in this. Bill states that there is a master plan in place. So,
But that could also be a transcription error, possibly. That's why I asked.
Yeah, I'll
the city is
verify.
looking for, it says master plan in place, and the city is looking into upgrading some buildings. So, I mean, if we can, for our January meeting, maybe get some insights on what the master plan, thank you for that. The master plan is, so, because I know I've brought it up, it seems like every budget year, where are we at with, this group gets revenue, they're the public sees these people all the time, and our buildings are, remember we had to do a new roof for 200,000 or some craziness. Why not really do like Kissimmee or some of these places have a nice focal, and everyone's coming here, because I think Parks and Rec does an awesome job with what they have, and let's really make that a highlight, I thought, but it just seems like it keeps getting pushed and pushed and pushed.
Sure.
So it sounds like we got a master, we can have something that we can discuss maybe.
I will definitely share it with the director of Parks and Recs
Yep.
and the city manager to get updated, so I don't speak out of turn with that, because I know they're always conscious about working on that, and I'll get them to have an answer for that.
Awesome, thank you. All right. Any other, where am I at? Any other business, previous business? Answer questions or comments from the meeting. All right, want to go with current business, Wendy?
Sure. So current business, we are presenting obviously fourth quarter for fiscal year 18-19, updated and unaudited as of September 30th, 2019. The purpose of the presentation, of course, is to highlight the fourth quarter budget report and present an overview of the city's revenues and expenditures and key department statistics. The first slide, as is normal, are presenting the top 10 revenues. All revenues, as you see in the introduction that I've written for you, demonstrated healthy results. The average percent of budget was 98.4 overall. This is adjusted. Leading those results was ad valorem and local tax at $10.9 million in actual revenue. Property values increasing this year in the county at 8.9% helped to do that. All service fees had strong realized results comparative to their actual projected revenues. Some highlights that I wanted to mention as you look at this slide is the infrastructure sales tax, or the 120 fund. They had a delay in revenue of right now currently 1 quarter pending at this time, as well as $2.6 million to take in consideration is prior year fund balance that's budgeted but will not realize. So the budget without prior year that you see there is actually $5,593,551 when we remove that 2.6, with actual revenues coming in as reported at $4,924,969. This definitely changes the percent of budget to 88% versus that 60%. That looks kind of yucky. That is the same case with the county gas tax, which is Fund 100. If you note there, it's showing at 74% of performance. It currently includes $410,000 in prior year estimated. Without the prior year included, that comes out to an estimate of $1,415,559. And the actual results as reported are $1,342,341. This is actually a 95% of budget performance versus that 74. So overall, like I said, you see 95.5, but removing that prior year actually makes that 98.4% of adjusted budget, in performance, which is overall pretty good, but we could always do better. And please stop me if you have any questions. The following slide is the major fund revenue. So we have listed your general fund, water fund, sewer fund, sanitation, your OUC funds, building funds, and stormwater. These funds all demonstrated strong results. Estimated within those, just take note that there's $15.2 million in prior year fund balance in estimation there, with $3.2 million in prior year actually being realized in actuals. Note that in the water fund impact fees, there's almost $2 million that are still being brought. Those impact fees are being put into the 420 fund, which is the water fund, instead of really going into the 470 fund, which is the water impact fund. This is the same thing that's going on with the sewer fund, where about $1.9 million of impact fees are being put into that sewer fund, where they should actually be allocated to the sewer impact fund or the 480 fund. We're reviewing that now, seeing why it's happening, maybe fee related or whatever the case may be, and we'll make those true up, and wanted just to give you the facts that what's included in there, because obviously the performances you see are at 118 and 112%. So kind of wanted to bring that into perspective. Your major fund expenditures in those funds, none of them exceeded, just to note, their overall budgeted expense amount, which was nice. Note that $7.1 million of contingency is in the City Council. It's included, and $49,000 is included of contingency in the OUC fund in those estimated budget totals.
What's that a percentage, do you know, in contingencies? So I'm just trying to remember I thought we set something up that they were wanting a certain amount in contingencies. What is it, 20?
Well, we have
21%. I can't remember what it was.
18%.
18%.
18%, and then the policy we're writing right now puts the benchmark at 15. That's what they wanted it moved up to.
Okay.
And there's some recommendations I have at the end for other ones that you had requested from last time, just kind of giving you an overview of that. The next slide is just the major fund surplus and deficit. General fund has a $1.3 million deficit plan based on originally a structurally imbalance beginning from the original fiscal year. However, I did look back on it, and this has significantly improved with preliminary deficits, almost at $2 million this time last year. So it's a huge improvement from last year as we continue to structurally balance this budget. We'll true up this account during the 13th period.
How did you improve it?
Well, the city manager requested all about $1.5 million reductions this year in budget, and also another $25,000 in travel expenditures to be reduced. So a reduction in expenditures. He's also keeping track of not adding new positions at this time and really absorbing what we have to hold and see if we could get these benchmarks and stabilize it a little bit more. So that cost that savings, which was, phenomenal from the staff. The water fund, as well as the sewer fund and sanitation had expected deficits. Hurricane Dorian took some of that deficit, as you see in the sanitation fund, as they prepared for coverage and pre-storm deployment labor costs with the overtime and a hurricane hitting on top of that. During a holiday was a tremendous hit. These funds were right at par, and the sanitation took one of the larger hits, in preparation for that. But we were expecting that, as we knew that they were, at black, and we're going to go red with the labor cost. Your general fund departmental expenditures, as you see here, I will read them for you and kind of mention some highlights here. We have the city council at 7.5 budgeted with 318,645. Obviously, that great percentage rate is based that on the budget amount. We have that 7.17 of contingency dollars there. And the city manager budgeted at 437,215. They are at 394,216. That's 90.2% of expenditure budget. The PIO is at 356 in budget, and actuals at 303, coming in at 85% of budget, with legal services at 403,306, coming in at 379,174, or 94% of budget. Human resources budgeted at 707,346, and coming in at 708,981 at 100% and 2/10. 665,079 for procurement, them coming in at 635,787, 95.6% of budget. Information technology, as well as planning and zoning, both coming in at 88% and 86% respectively. Police, 15,120,063 budget, coming in at 15,284, 571, scraping in at 101.1% of budget. With fire following right behind them at 8.7 budgeted and 8.796 in actuals, 100.7/10 of budget. And Public Works coming in at 1.8 in budget with 1.793 or 95%. And Parks and Rec coming in at 90.9% with actuals at 4,181,436. And capital outlay at 325, 351 coming in at your 325. 351. Overall, 46,934,559. Actuals coming in at 38,681,203, or 82.4% of budget.
What is the percentage, sorry, what is the percentage if we take out the contingency?
I was just going to ask, have we made any amendments this year? I know last year we had like 8.
Well, we still have the final amendment period coming in November, which, will... 5, right? So budget amendment number 5 is where we're, 5?
No, I'm sorry.
The
this is
6.
6.
Yeah, we've done 5. We're on, the last one would be budget amendment number 6, and we're truing up those accounts to see what it'll look like, and that's always a nice lengthy budget amendment. So we'll have the adjustments to truing up these accounts then. As you had requested some recommendations, as I've looked into and studied up some things. So my overview of this fourth quarter still presents some opportunities to fine-tune the revenue streams to be at optimal levels. There's some key factors that I feel are affecting budget and setting fee schedule goals, which is nothing that we can't fix, and they're already being looked at. One of them is the elasticity of demand. One of them is the price that the potential volume that we have is considered in setting fees and taxes. Some of the questions that I propose to kind of ask are, what are the demand for the services if we shrink as the price escalates? Or is the fee too low that we can encourage consumption beyond the resources of the city? So if we add more and can we afford it by doing it with fees or not, and will people use our services? If so, that's a question and recommendation that I have to ask that question as we look into this, to set fees at the correct rate in order to afford this business. Some of our competitive constraints that I've seen here is, are the services that we're providing available at a less expensive or more efficient resource? And I think that kind of answers Mr. Brown's question as to, are we looking for smarter, not harder ways, and and what investments we'll make with that. I'm looking to test performance levels, cost efficiency, and return on investment against some industry standards. I've reached out to the FGOA to get some industry standard thresholds and do some ratios, which I'm doing now per fund. And then, of course, best practices and customer satisfactions, get some surveys out there. What are we doing right and what are we doing wrong? And that way, that'll help us maybe offer some rates and fee structures that take care of service effectiveness and customer response. One of the final kind of recommendations right now is incentives. Just a quick question to kind of involve ourselves, not just being finance, but involve ourselves with other departments like economic development that we're pushing so hard, is attracting other business, for the purpose of economic development. That would obviously give us some revenue growth. What's the long-term effect of that? And increase our tax base by increasing employment in city sales and other indirect economic impacts. And, working as a team, that would be something, that we're looking into. Some of the ways that right now I'm doing and looking into this is through trend analysis. Very, just simple, just to explain it to you. Just looking at historical data to predict future revenues. Some of the revenues have risen, some have risen 5%, and we expect that growth will continue at this same rate. So this analysis will help us kind of project better for our 5-year plan, and that capital plan that we're looking at right now. Finally, one of the recommendations for fund balance is that I'm making sure that we have measurable and adequate security, of course, in the event of any change, as we have foresee, the gas tax going away, the millage rate being rolled back. Those are some things that have been presented this year that could happen, so we need to be prepared for that. We're looking right now at the reserve to be equal to about 2 months of water and sewer budgeting, maybe minus the chargebacks, debt service, and of course all the transfers and capital costs. Excuse me. And then I'd like to maybe see a target level for the financial stabilization and account for that. That maybe our fund balances are in between 15 and 25% of general fund minus the capital. Just to kind of reassure you, these are not just things that are kind of hopes and dreams, but things that we are strategically doing now. We're looking at each fund and its performances. Right now, the water fund is getting reviewed by a consultant in all areas to see where we're at, and I'm doing that with all the other funds to get this data going and provide more stability and answers. Other than that, if anybody has any questions. Excuse me.
Are we seeing with water, are we having any issues with water?
Speaking of water, she says, I need some
Lack
now.
of.
Thanks.
Yeah, why don't you go take a break? No.
Yeah, okay.
We're good.
I thought I was there.
Yeah, that was, yeah, it's been, yeah, they're,
Whatever happened to any of that? Well, they were taking out Claremont and other towns and do something with it.
I'm trying to remember what because you're right, I'm trying to,
What's happened to me? I hate when that happens.
what was that about?
My nose is running. I'm so cold.
It's pretty chilly in here.
Now you say Claremont.
Are they
rings
trying
a
to keep
bell.
y'all
I'm just
awake?
trying to remember what it
Oh, us.
That was their big thing.
It's been a long day. You're tired of hearing all the mumbo jumbo.
I was looking at and
Because I was wondering about with the growth they're talking about, how we're going to do the ordinance.
My apologies, Chairman. Sorry about that.
That's what happens when you have to talk a lot.
Yeah.
No, we're good. I was just, my question was, is the water and sewer with the development coming on, it's been years, but I thought we were struggling with those issues. And are we looking into this? Because, I mean, I know across from Neptune, Middle, and this other growth, are we okay with water? Do we know if we're, again, I'm just trying to remember, I was on the planning board, and these were some issues that were really starting to come on, and that was probably 5 to 8 years ago. So I'm curious, with this growth being so strong, are we prepared? Do we have the ability to handle this type of growth with water and sewer? that you're aware of? I might, I don't know if you're aware of it or not.
Well, I've kind of sat with Brian Wheeler, and I try to extract every piece of information he has because he's a wealth of information. And that's why right now the fund is getting reviewed to make sure that, our resources are right for it, because there are some things that are coming, in the near future that if we have a major break or something, we might not have the resources. So Brian, along with the consultants, are trying to review what we have and our needs are going to be, and also projecting and running it more efficiently and giving us those results, because there are some things I know, I can't remember the development, but about in 5 years, there's going to be some need for water a little further down. And Brian's already on top of that, like how do we prepare for that by charging fees now and rolling it in and getting ready for 5 years versus waiting for the D-Day and then we don't have the money or we have to pull it somewhere. So very proactive going. All the enterprise funds right now are getting looked at for that because they are our little factories that should be producing. We want to make sure that they're at optimal speed. So water being one of the larger topics these days, there's definitely a huge focus. But, Brian's review on that has always been to prepare for the future. So he's definitely looking with that. And, like his expertise is excellent because it's just kind of started and trickled its effect into sanitation, sewer, to not always be worried about what problem's going to come up, but a means to failure and be ready for the issue. So very proactive versus reactive.
Any questions on her current business? There is none.
I do.
Oh.
Because I know she already discussed it, and maybe I just didn't understand it good enough. I was looking, the two ones that I was looking at was the major fund revenues, then expenditures, and then you had the surplus plus deficit. Remind me again why we're seeing the deficit in the general sanitation and stormwater again.
Well, to begin with the sanitation, it was all labor. Labor went over. And these are
651,000 over?
yeah, and this includes all encumbrances as well. So we're 651 in there. A lot of it came, people think of just labor as hours, but then we have all the tax expenditure that comes with it, all the fringe that comes with it. So once we elevate that, a lot of it did come from this, hurricane that just came through, that they were already trending to hit budget right at point. So this is just the tipping scales for that. The general fund, we had, even though we were at a collection rate of, I think it was 98 or something like that. I'm sorry, 80%. So we did miss out on almost 20% of revenue out there. So it is going to cause a deficiency. On top of that, we've, already started, some things as far as we don't have what I can see a lot of expenditures that are way outside the norm. Everything's budgeted in. Labor is a really big balance for us here, like any other place or a nonprofit. It eats up a lot of our budget. Fine-tuning revenue is kind of my solution here instead of continuously cutting, expenditures, because all we're doing is cutting people and we just can't cut anymore, So I guess another option would be that to make sure that our fees are in line, that we can afford the business, maybe get out of a business that if we can't afford it and sustain it. So that would be a start to start pitching at this $1 million so that we don't continuously have to cover that deficit. We shouldn't. And, the idea is to at least net zero and afford our business right now. But losing 20% of revenue and not grabbing it from where we're grabbing it, whether it be fines or charges of services, is going to hurt us regardless.
And the stormwater again, the 243,000?
243, when I looked at it, we were a little behind in charges for services, not much. I mean, they made their gains there. Labor was a big thing as well, because they don't really have a lot of expenditures there. So I think performing these tests that we're doing to say, hey, where are we at, and seeing this as a red, not because it's a bad thing, but because we need to make sure, the city demands certain things, and we need to be, we need to quantify what that means. They want more trash cans, but that costs money, and we need to get this cost, and we're not just raising fees because we want more money. I know we do have a lot of money that's for reserve purposes, and a lot of just people see it as we have thousands of dollars, and so we just need to make sure that these services that we render to the city are in alignment with that revenue that's coming in. Like I said, that 20% hit on some of the funds, hit us kind of big, but I don't see why we can't improve it. I mean, if it's been running this way, adding some fine-tuned tools to it has to make it better.
Would that mean like a software platform again for either collecting that or doing automated payments if they can't afford to pay a fine or a fee? Or I don't really know what the fees are, but I've read that if the fee's too high, $1,000, $2,000, then they don't pay at all. So if it's a recurring payment of $100 or something, then you might collect it. Like, is it something like that?
Yeah. So with some of the software that we're bringing on right now, one, we don't have an online payment system right now. So when we open it up, that could be both positive and negative. Maybe people won't want to do it, or people will think it's a great option and do it, and we'll get more money in it collected. Adding and streamlining some services, definitely should be a huge increase for us. The fees part, I think it's not really about just increasing. I think we're at a point where we need to know what these numbers are, how much it does cost us. Like if they want more routes, what does it cost a guy to get off the truck from sanitation and add 3 routes? If we're telling the guy you can't do overtime, you can't do this, does it take 2.5 seconds or does it take 3.5? Because that'll change a route. So those little qualitative things will help us kind of streamline and say, look, some of the questions this committee's had before, it's like, why do you need 5 guys? We should be able to answer that and say, because we're filling these things and, 7 routes, whatever the case may be. So that's where I think that performance will come in. And then, like I said, the technology part, if we get, any fancier or any better, it should produce results. It could have a hindrance too, you're right, but.
Will Matrix Consulting, whatever they're called, the consulting group coming in, will they help analyze that?
I know they do resources. I don't know to what extent they'll do that. I mean, right now, the 2 programs that we're in launch status is one for people to be able to make payments online and do all of their permits through the online system. And then the other one is OpenGov, which is a dashboard for council committee members where you can just click and drive and go and see expenditures, you see everything. So it's, real-time information. And that should help, too, with reporting. It shouldn't take 1,000 hours to create a spreadsheet. So everything is kind of pushing us to the future in this growth that we're talking about, but really saying what the growth is. That's at least my ultimate goal, is to define this.
That OpenGov, wasn't that, didn't they have that at the conference, a class with that or something? It was like a dashboard style.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That looked very interesting, like you could get any data you want. You just
very
drill into
user-friendly.
what you want to do it, and it's there.
We're projected to hopefully be at a training launch in November of this year right now. So
I think you could, there's a public access to it as well.
Yes, sir. There's a
So very
citizen.
transparent. If I remember at the conference, they talked about it, and it was really, I was like, you want to figure it out, you can go right in and plug it in, and you can see right now what's going on. It was a really good program, at least it looked interesting. I have a question, as you skimmed it quickly, and I'm just kind of curious. What are we, the political element is coming back as the election's coming up. What are we doing and how are we approaching this potential rollback that I keep hearing about? Have you looked into how that is going to affect across the board, everything, services? And are we presenting this to council going, hey, you roll this back, this is what we're losing?
Yeah.
Are we breaking it down for them?
That's what I'm in right now. As soon as I can get out of this, launching and deployment of systems here is what it really means and what's the drive here. We're looking at giving back residents $60 a year in savings, which is going to cut us almost $1 million. And I've learned that through education. If people understand it and you talk about it in layman's terms, then we get a lot further than trying to fancy this thing up. So I'm just trying to, understand the purpose of both sides and just say, listen, these are the options. We're going to end up having to cut, or can we afford that? I don't think we can, because we continue to grow. We can't sustain, but we can do the best we can, and we have to prepare for it. So the goal is to get those numbers ready. And there's two that we're actually prepping, just being proactive, would be that one, the rollback if it happens, and also the gas tax going away, and being prepped for that. So, I'm doing those numbers now to present that to the city manager so that they could share it with council, and they can, have all the information to make an educated decision on what they feel is the best.
Awesome. Any other questions? Donna,
Hi.
it's all you.
Pull this down and talk. Can you hear me okay? All right. We'll go over the performance of the investment portfolio for the year-to-date and quarter-to-date. So for the year-to-date, ending September 30th, we had a total return of 2.89%, and that equates to almost $3 million, 2.983 in investment earnings in total return. The components of that are an interest income of 1.35%. That's the coupon payments that are coming into us, and that's about $1.4 million for the year. And then a positive 154 basis points of market value appreciation, and that equated to $1.6 million, or $1.587 million. The portfolio has grown over the last year. We began with roughly $93.5 million and ended this fiscal year with over $111 million invested. So for the quarter end, we had a total return of 2.45%. That equates for the quarter to about $692,000. The components of that were 1.28% of interest income, which was roughly $363,000, and then 117 basis point positive market value adjustment, and that comes out to about $330,000. Interest rates during the quarter continued to decline, and the curve was slightly inverted at the time, where shorter term rates were actually paying more than longer term rates. During the quarter, short term rates dropped about 25 basis points. And because there's that inverse relationship between interest rates and bond prices, the fact that when the rates went down, the value of the investments that we held in our portfolio actually went up. And therefore, that's where that market value adjustment comes from. It is an accounting measurement, and it's an unrealized gain, I want to emphasize. And we do have a buy and hold type investment strategy, and therefore those adjustments, whether they're positive in this case or negative, they have been negative in the past. I've had to stand here and explain the negative unrealized gains to you guys as well. They will smooth out when these investments mature, and we'll receive the full face value of the bond when it matures. We've got a graph below that shows the diversification of the portfolio, and it shows where we have approximately 47% in treasuries, about 13% in government agencies, about 30% in local government investment pools, 6% in cash, and 4% in negotiable CDs. And that's the composition of the portfolio. Maybe happy to answer any questions you might have about the portfolio or the performance.
You said it, but what was our overall increase percentage-wise? Because we had like 95, we're at 111.
Okay.
What
Yeah,
was
I
the-
didn't have the actual
Okay.
percentage.
Okay, I
It's
was just
about
curious.
$16 million that in cash that the portfolio increased in, and that's probably attributed to the additional activity, the additional impact fees that we've been receiving with the building activity and higher fees,
Any questions of Donna?
roughly 15%, I would say,
Yes.
if I had
That's
to,
what I
off
was
the
just-
top of my head.
I just did the math, 15,
Oh, okay.
just about 15%, yeah.
Okay,
Which is pretty good.
still
I can deal with that.
got that.
Awesome.
Any other questions?
When all the numbers are positive, there's never any questions. It's when you got to explain all that other stuff.
So I have to explain the negative unrealized, returns, yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Donna, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Other business, we have our next meeting, our next quarterly meeting will be Tuesday, the 21st, 2000, that should be 20. So hopefully that's the right calendar date. Is it a Tuesday as well? Okay. I'd like to propose something to the team and then get some direction or from Bill and the departments. I'm currently on a public safety committee, and in the public safety committee, we're meeting again tomorrow, and I thought it was really interesting. You know, we get, especially towards, you know, when we do our budgets, our final budgets, and they're presenting, everyone comes to us. We hear their plights and what we need and want, but we don't see it. And what we've done in my committee that I've been a part of is they've taken us around, and it's public safety, so, but we've gone around to the fire department, we've gone to all the fire departments. We've seen response times to the furthest area that we cover. We literally, there was a fire, we have, if you're not aware, we have a subdivision on Nova Road, and they had a fully engulfed fire. And we went out to that location and we bust ourselves back in just to 17th and Minnesota, not going to the fire station. That was 11 minutes at like 8:30 at night or 8 o'clock at night, so traffic volume's much lower. If I'm correct, the response time from call to arrival was 16 minutes. That's the nearest fire station, just up the road here to Nova Road. So then when we go and we start touring these places and we hear the fire going, hey, we need this or we need that, it amazes me. This fire station up by Kissimmee Park Road near the Turnpike entrance. This is our bed space between the six of us, him, me, and we could literally, we are on top of each other. It's that close. So she could be right next to me, and there's no privacy, we are this close. No divider. I can't get up. I'd have to slide to the end of the bed. He'd have to come here, and that's how we would have to get up if we woke up or got on a call at the same time or put whatever they do to get ready for their. So my point being is what I'd like to do is, and I've already talked to the chief about it, I'd like for us to tour these different places as an addition, not a full-blown, if you're not there, you're counted absent and you have to explain why you weren't at a meeting. But I would like in January, if you could come up with, Bill and whoever, come up with some dates, unless you guys aren't interested. And I think you would be,
Sounds like a good
I
idea.
think you'd really get a better understanding. And I would also like to then include maybe Public Works to see, you know, just a tour of, hey, this is when we say we need $200,000 for this, and we need this because this is broken. When we come to our budget in July, we're more informed as a committee to go, I get it, or that can wait, or whatever. Versus we hear everyone saying they want, and at least we can see it. We got an idea. At least for me, I needed to. When I saw this, it really like I get it, and to see the response times, and we have a ladder truck that they can't move because every time they repair it, the last repair was $80,000, and it's still not working, and so now they got a budget for, I forgot, fire truck was like $1.5 million. So this is sitting up off of North Vermont area, just sitting in they can't use it. So now what happens if this catches fire? We don't have a ladder truck to accommodate. So at least my understanding. I think that's our only true ladder truck. So if he comes in, fire comes in and says, hey, we need to start budgeting $5 million, $3 million, whatever the numbers are, we can go, I understand now. And we go to Public Works or sewer or whatever and go, hey, this is what happens when this system goes down. We might have a better understanding on cost and what things are. So I would like to create something maybe May-ish, June-ish. Probably May would be nice, so we're not having meeting, but maybe the month of May, April, May maybe. Because like our quarterly meeting is probably April.
April, the end of April.
Yeah, so maybe thereafter, if we can focus on May, maybe once a week, because that's what we're doing every 2 weeks. But and it counts on how much we can cover. But if we can we'll do fire and police and get there at whatever time, and they tour us around, and we see, okay, wow, now I see what you're talking about. Oh, I see the equipment. And then maybe week 2 we do public, Parks and Rec and see what their needs and what they do.
I mean, if that's something you want to do, can we just propose doing it on the 10 most expensive departments in the city? Because it'd probably be hard to go to everybody.
Or budget increases.
Well, no, but that's what I mean. Those public works, water and sewer, and public safety are Parks and Recs, and public safety are your 4 biggest money makers, or suck the money out of us that I see. Unless, I don't know what other ones we would have to see, and I don't know if we can see all. Like I said, the fire departments, there's only 3. One right here, there, and up off of Vermont. Basically, they have a training center, and that's it. Everything's like on this side of town. Wow. But whatever. I would like us to, if you're able to. I know scheduling and time, and it's the end of the school year. But I think if we all went out there and you got a good idea, so that when we have our budget meetings in July and they're coming going, hey, these are our requests and this is what we're looking at and this is why we need to start setting money aside, then you can have an educated, and your due diligence are there to go, hey, what are you guys doing about this? We saw this at this area. What are you doing about these things? So just an idea, if you guys are interested. If we could get with Bill and a few of those directors, I don't know which groups, but I'm thinking Parks and Rec, Public Safety, Fire and Police, maybe Water and Sewer, maybe a couple of the plants, to get an idea hey, when this one goes down, this is why it costs $200,000 and we got to get it working right away or whatever. I don't think we have many water plants. I'm not too familiar with where they are, except the one up off 10th Street. Any thoughts? Anything else that you would like maybe to see or interested in seeing? I'm just trying to make it, I figure if we do a month, once a week, we're doing Wednesdays. We're doing every 2 weeks, we're doing Wednesday. We've been doing this for probably 5 Wednesdays now, but every 2 weeks. So
I just agree if we just make it specific. So how many departments, and is it the most expensive ones, and then like a timeline. So like maybe it's 3 months or something, like those 3 questions of what I would have. How many departments? Are they the most expensive departments? And timeline.
Timeline meaning?
Is it only in May? Like, are we going to do like a one straight shot in May, or are we going to try to do it once a month?
Well, I'm trying to. I don't want to strap you guys. We can't sometimes make them on our quarterly meetings, and now to go, hey, we're strapping you every Wednesday from April through May. I'm just throwing it out there. We can pick. I don't care what day. I'm just kind of watching what we're doing now, and if we have a prepared, we go, okay, every Wednesday in May. I'm just throwing it out there. We can go earlier. I just want to be fresh in our minds, so come July when we have our budget meetings, we can go. Okay, I get it. I know what's going on.
Or we could stretch it out May, June. I don't think it has
But I
to be
know-
all
but-
done in 1 month.
No, but I'm just going to, then you got June, people going on vacation. I know we're all pretty much, you're locked in if you
But
have
like you
kids.
said, it's optional.
Yeah.
And as long as somebody
But I
on
just
the
don't-
committee has the knowledge, it would
I would just, but
help.
I don't want to do it if it's just me or it's just Jeremy and you guys can't make it, then these guys are, because it's an ordeal to get they had to get a bus, they had to take us around, and again, we haven't done Parks and Rec, we haven't done Water and Sewer, so I don't even know what that would even look like. So, and again, I'm throwing out that we could,
There's only a few of us. Y'all could all jump in my van and we can go.
but I don't
Rent
know
the
what,
bus.
I don't know what it would take to do it. I don't
Right.
know what timeline we could do it. I just figured summertime starts pushing vacations.
Should
and-
we let Wendy
When-
develop a plan with Bill and then see
That's
what comes
what,
back?
that's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
come January, have some, and I don't care what
Ideas.
dates and ideas. I just thought we start pushing June or July and I'm on vacation. He's on a cruise again and he's traveling the world as usual. So, then he's missing out. Again, if we can get the majority team, I've already done the public safety, but I thought that was really eye-opening for me. And I think if we could create and it might be starting in March and doing every 2 weeks, if everyone can do it. I just want to make it, I don't want to strap you guys to have 7 meetings.
Well, like you said, they're optional, but it's important that those that could attend and
It
have
just
the
wouldn't
time to
look
do
good if
it,
it
would
just,
it?
oh, Jeanette's the only one there today. And we can't make them all. And I don't want to, and again, it's not a pressure. I don't want to go, hey, Jeremy can't make it, and he's been penalized, and now he has to justify why he's
Oh,
not
yeah,
at that
no.
meeting. That's not a good
Wendy, when will you begin requesting departments to start submitting budgets? And when would you
February,
have that finalized?
We're trying to give Don a mental break for 2 seconds, but
For 2 seconds, exactly.
we're projecting to have a budget training. We're not trying to cramp up the holidays, maybe in January now and give them some room. Originally, we thought November, but then February we'll kick back up again. And then with the recommendations we have, start doing that a little bit more intimate, budget, and the training is so that directors and everybody get a refresher course and answer any questions and maybe get a little bit more in their heads what they're trying to accomplish so we can provide them the tools and kind of be educated for them.
Will we run into any conflicts, though, with this consultant team coming in and giving us a report? Just say you start in February and we don't get that report until May, June, and they have some significant things we could adjust or need to adjust. Will we be able to roll that in there anyway? Or is that hey, that'll be 2021 in February, we'll discuss it?
Yeah, I would have to ask the city manager what his direction is on that once Matrix, depending on when they would give us that information, if and when that would be implemented. I don't think he'd, vote for just jamming it in there, but I don't know what that timeline looks, and I'll ask him to get more clarity on that, to provide you an answer with that. And again, I always keep in mind Dawn's sanity, so, because she's always making changes.
We're not doing it.
Yeah, she hates the last minute changes and stuff, but I'll get direction from the city manager because he'll, educate me on that, what he'd like to do. But if we can, I don't see why he wouldn't want to incorporate if we get him in enough time,
And I know we can't just, hey, change everything right now, but I mean, especially if this sounds like they have some really good potential to, hey, let's utilize these services
Sure.
here, and we need this. Some things you can't get in right away, but
I'll like I said, I'll ask him to get a good time frame because, like I said, he's interested, everybody is, and then whatever that time frame plus what he has to do to present to council and all those requirements. So, maybe at least get an estimate what that would look like and what he wants to do.
are we good with in general, we good with that, visiting these places?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
And I have a note here I'll let Bill know.
Yeah.
And see what he'd like to do.
I don't know if I'll see him. He hasn't been coming to I think he's avoiding the beating, so he hasn't come to many of I think you're coming in a couple weeks.
Yes, I think they gave us November 13th.
Yeah, I think
You know, so he's been pretty busy. So he's a busy man. But
Yeah. All right. Any board members have any comments or anything they would like to bring up or address?
No comment.
No comments. I don't see anyone in the audience, so with that said, meeting adjourned.
Woohoo.
I could have sat in the back chair, been in the audience.
I remember someone was in the audience, but I thought they were an employee.
Yeah. Stevens Plantation.
She said, yes, I would like to.